The question is that the amendment be agreed to, and I call the honourable member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's very pleased to speak on a bill following the member for Kingsford Smith, who so graciously agrees with the government on this bill. Deputy Speaker, I must admit at first blush, when we introduced this bill in the Parliament and it increases the tax, I'm sure many of us are concerned. The last thing we want to do on this side of the House is to bring in legislation that increases taxes. But there's a very fundamental, important point that needs to be made in this, Deputy Speaker. We need to ensure that every policy that we legislate in this nation, at the very minimum, gives Australian businesses a level playing field to compete. We cannot, Deputy Speaker, have legislation that puts Australian businesses at a competitive disadvantage. And that's what the current system does. If I am shopping, Deputy Speaker, for a good and I look online, Deputy Speaker, or I look in a catalogue, doesn't have to be online, it can be on a catalogue, and I can find an Australian retailer selling an equivalent good to a foreign retailer, at the moment we are forcing the Australian retailer to charge 10% GST and remit that to the government, but yet the foreign retailer, Deputy Speaker, doesn't have to pay a cent of GST. So our policies are currently putting Australian businesses at a competitive disadvantage. This is something, Deputy Speaker, that none of us can accept. We need to try and give our businesses some type of, at least a competitive advantage. But to do things that make it more difficult for Australian businesses, especially small Australian businesses, Deputy Speaker, we have to take a stand. And that's why our government and the Minister sitting at the table should be congratulated for his work on this, because many in the retail sector have been calling out for government to take action on this, Deputy Speaker. We've seen the Australian retail sector, how hard it is to earn a dollar. We've seen many businesses, Deputy Speaker, in the retail sector close down over the last several years. So we are, Deputy Speaker, we just want to tell them we want to give you the opportunity to compete on a level playing field, and that's what we are doing. But, Deputy Speaker, although we have support from the Labor government on this, I would hope that they would support us on some other areas where we can give small Australian retailers a competitive level playing field. And of course, Deputy Speaker, the first one we start with is the company tax rate. How can we expect Australian businesses competing head-on directly against their foreign competitors, Deputy Speaker, if they are forced to pay a 30 or a 28.5% company tax rate, and yet their foreign competitor, Deputy Speaker, may only be paying 15 or 17%. Again, Deputy Speaker, it's putting our businesses at a competitive disadvantage. But the most concerning, Deputy Speaker, about the competitive disadvantage that those on the other side of the chamber want to put on Australian businesses is the cost of energy. We've seen plans, Deputy Speaker, from the other side of the chamber that will simply force the cost of energy up even higher than it already is. Already, Deputy Speaker, we see Australian businesses, small Australian businesses, paying some of the highest electricity costs in the world. And the Labor opposition, Deputy Speaker, they say that is not enough. They say they want to wipe out Australia's coal-fired power stations, drive them out of business, the lowest cost producer, and bring in, Deputy Speaker, intermittent, unreliable, high-cost renewables to drive the price of electricity up, to put Australian businesses at an even greater competitive disadvantage than they already are. On this side of the House, Deputy Speaker, I, for one, am not going to stand by and see that happen. So with that, Deputy Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. We must give our Australian businesses, at the very minimum, a level playing field to compete on against their international competitors. I commend this bill to the House.